Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome to this episode of the MBV Podcast, brought to you by mindbodyvortex.com. I'm Jeremy Gardner, your host, and this is a place where we venture deep into the mind-body connection and the exciting and dynamic human experience. We explore topics like meditation, mindfulness, mindful development by connecting with professionals, practitioners, creatives, entrepreneurs, and just interesting people that can help us expand our perceptions of reality and experience a more fun and exciting version of life. In today's competitive and digitally stimulated environment, it has become such an advantage to maintain a calm and focused mind. This might be why we are hearing more about people from all walks of life, including professional athletes, musicians, artists, and some of the most successful entrepreneurs integrating various forms of meditation into their routines. Meditation is now being used and understood as a way to lower stress, enhance our performance, achieve our goals, and optimize how we navigate through the complex challenges we face on a daily basis. Today's episode is a great example of how meditation can be used not only as a tool for self-therapy and an effective relaxation technique, but as a key to unlocking our creative potential and human ability to tap into what we will refer to as the designer mindset. Our guest today joins us to discuss how we can bring this mindset into our work and our lives, and as a way to look at the world from a more creative point of view. In this episode, we are joined by product designer Frank Chartrand to discuss the mindful design mindset. Let's get into the discussion. Hey, Frank, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, no problem. Happy to be here.
Awesome. So I want to give a little context here for those listening as to what this conversation is about and how we connected and why I wanted to jump on this podcast with you. Frank is a product designer at HeadSpace, and if you're listening to this, you're probably very familiar with what that is. This is a meditation app. You know that little orange circle that we're starting to see on our mobile devices, and our friends talking about how they're into meditation all of a sudden, and we're starting to see it a lot more. This is the leading meditation application helping people learn and develop their practice in a very fun and engaging way. But HeadSpace has become a lot more than just a meditation app and has really become a symbol that represents the evolution of meditation and a new era of people who are interested in learning meditation as a way to take responsibility for themselves in a modern world, improve various aspects of their work life, relationships, health, and happiness. So Frank recently wrote a fantastic article about the mindful design process, which is a very fascinating representation of how mindfulness and meditation is being applied in our modern world and under real life circumstances. In this case, working within a team of people to come up with something creative and valuable and actually carrying and evolving these ideas from conception to execution in an invigorating and challenging process, which is the product development process. So I want to talk about that article and what drove the inspiration behind this. But Frank, maybe you can give us a little background as to what you've been up to for the last few years and your career and how you ended up doing what you're doing today.
Sure, yeah. So today I'm a product designer at HeadSpace, and like you mentioned, we're a meditation app, and I had the pleasure to work on the newest version of the app that you see today in the Google and iTunes stores. That was pretty much my life for about a year. And before that, I worked at a company called Eden Speakerman, who are a German company founded by Eric Speakerman. They have an office here in LA, and I got to work on a nice project called Red Bull TV. So some people would think that's kind of a really funny transition to go from, like an energy drink company's application to a meditation app. But, I think I live my life in sharp contrasts, and I thought that the move felt right. Before that, I actually had my own agency up in Sudbury, Ontario, in a small northern mining town. We had a company called Bureau, and that's where I really laid my foundation for my design career. I got to work on a lot of different projects, from work for Laurentian University, doing work for the city of Greater Sudbury, work for some of the museums, some of the art galleries up there. And at one point in my career, I decided I really wanted to focus on app design, and I wasn't getting a lot of that kind of work up there. I was doing a lot more classic communication design work or work in advertising and branding. And yeah, just in an effort to focus more on apps and digital, I kind of set my sights for the West and had a couple ideas of cities I wanted to end up in, and LA ended up being the winner, being the one that I landed firmly in, and started working on apps, and that's been my story for the last couple years.
That's awesome. And so you've been working with HeadSpace, and right now you're actually at the HeadSpace headquarters in Santa Monica.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I've been at HeadSpace for just about a year. I think it's a year next week or something.
Cool. So you guys have been working on some really fascinating things. So what has it been like there for you? Is this a new position for you, product design?
Yeah, well, when I was running my own studio, I was kind of, the everything person. You're doing a little bit of account work, you're doing some design work, and I really thought to myself long and hard, what's my favorite kind of day, like morning to end of day, what do I like doing the most? And the answer was really easy. It was not the account work, not the client meetings. It was just purely designing. And that's another little piece that kind of pushed me to seek out a design role, and really hone in on those skills. And it's a bit of a lateral move, I guess, from the world of communication design into product design, because we're product design, we're dealing a little bit more with like user interface design or user experience design, and kind of thinking about the whole product and how it feels for users, like from the moment they download the app in the App Store to actually using the app and having a meditation session, or maybe calling our customer support line, how that whole experience feels end to end. So it is a bit of a shift, but it felt pretty natural.
Cool. Yeah. I really want to talk about that, because just in terms of design and technology and these apps, it's very fascinating where it's been coming in terms of the human experience. This technology has been evolving so fast, and it's just interesting to see the simplicity of how it's been merging with like human nature. So I know that that's a lot of what goes into product design these days, is understanding the psychology of who's on the other end of that product or that experience. So I want to get into that, but
Sure.
I was wondering, we were talking last time about meditation, and you said this is something that has kind of been a part of your life throughout your career. So how did this come into your life?
Yeah, it's almost been this story that I'm retrofitting, because I rediscovered meditation maybe about 5 years ago, and the more I thought about it and really looked back, I could see that there were moments in my life when I was in elementary school, just like a kid, where I do have memories of one of my teachers getting the classroom to meditate, and I realize now that was actually quite forward thinking at the time, and I guess kudos to the Ontario public school system for hiring some teachers that had students meditating so early on.
Wow.
And I can't quite remember if it was something we did as part of a nap time routine or something, but I do remember kind of learning the basics of meditation and doing like a very simple body scan from the top of your head to your toes, that kind of thing. And then, fast forward like 15 years, and I haven't thought about meditation at all. And I think just the stress of everyday life and just kind of going through day to day without really much thought, and just kind of feeling like you're sort of living to work and pay the bills, and not taking a moment to really step back and look around at what's really going on, and look inside and, to see what's going on within you and not just outside of you. And I think that kind of guided me to seeking something that could maybe help me deal with the stresses of work and life. And I think meditation was kind of on the rise again, or just this idea of living mindfully. some people around me were talking about it, mostly my fiance Terry, and actually my her mom was the person who invited me to go to a meditation kind of meetup at a health center back in Canada.
Mm-hmm.
And at first I laughed and I thought, yeah, that's ridiculous. I'm like, okay, yeah, I'm going to go sit in a room with 30 people and have a group meditation. And then I thought, what do I have to lose? I'll just give this a shot and see if it helps. I'm kind of like overworking myself and not sleeping very well, and just really treating my body poorly, having like bad eating habits, and I'm not going through life the way that I thought that I would.
Mm-hmm.
I was not living the life that I really wanted, and then I sort of was reintroduced to meditation. And at first, I remember falling asleep a bunch. I would just go within like 5 or 10 minutes, I'd fall asleep and wake up, and this hour-long group session had been over. And one of the teachers at the time said, you shouldn't worry about it. Your body will do, what it wants
mm-hmm.
and what it needs. And so I just didn't put any pressure, and I just kept going and kept practicing. And eventually that led to discovering a couple meditation apps. And then I discovered HeadSpace, and it kind of happened at the same time that I wanted to go into the world of product design.
Yeah.
And I landed in LA, and I knew they had an office here in Santa Monica, and it was sort of this perfect storm of a bunch of things going really well. And I think I attribute some of that to just taking a second and stepping back and really thinking about, like, what do I want out of life? What do I want out of the next year, out of the next 5 years? And how can I create a bit of a path to get there? I think like staying flexible for sure is helpful, but it's been a really, really great mindful journey, you could say.
Yeah, perfect. And those aren't easy decisions either, those career changes and even changing locations as well, but really taking the time to kind of observe these options and see, kind of listen to yourself and what you really want to do. And meditation has a lot to do with that. And well, it can definitely help us be aware of these decisions. So your early experiences with meditation had a lot to do with other people, like group sessions and these kinds of things, which is very interesting, because the more I learn about meditation and the experience of it, the more I learn how important the human connection aspect of it, like sharing this with other people, because getting into meditation alone can be kind of a lonely place to start. And it's been, you kind of have to start there, I think, because you have to kind of go within yourself and see what's going on. But a part of the process is always kind of opening up and developing a community and sharing these experiences with other people, just like we're doing right now. And with the meditation apps that I've seen kind of come up, have always been about teaching people how to meditate and creating this meditation experience for people. But what is it about HeadSpace that you think is different in terms of delivering this experience of meditation?
I think the big difference, and what we hear from some users that we talk to, I think part of what attracted me as well, was the fact that we're looking at meditation in maybe a bit of a more modern way. We're giving it a bit of a different spin, adding a little bit of fun with like the animations and like color schemes and things like that we have in the app. We make a pretty distinct choice to not go into the areas of sort of the babbling brook or the Zen garden kind of approach. We're really strong in what we want to be as a brand, just visually and with the language that we use. And I think that's been part of what has attracted so many people to the app. Is, this doesn't look like like the meditation and mindfulness stuff that I've seen in the past, and I notice sometimes if you go into a library and you look at the health and wellness section, you'll see a bunch of stuff that kind of looks the same. You've got the Zen garden, the trees, the people sitting in lotus pose, that kind of stuff. And if you were to put HeadSpace next to all of that, we would give you this this splash of color and of brightness. And I think that's resonated really well with the world, or the meditation community.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because it's such an inviting like interface. The colors are very, very fun and exciting. But when it comes to the meditation experience, why do you think that attracts people to the product and to meditation?
Yeah, there's two pieces, I think. One is that it cuts through the clutter, and that's kind of a classic advertising approach. Is that if you zig when everyone else is zagging, you will stand out. And the second is, I think people are often dealing with some difficult topics, and if you're going through something in your life, like maybe you're dealing with anxiety or anger or stress or death, and you're looking for something to kind of help you navigate that, to be greeted by something that's a bit more colorful and a little bit more joyful looking, I think is attractive to people. Mm-hmm. And I think it's a balance too, to not make it like too cartoony or too, it's not all fun. We're definitely dealing with some really difficult subjects, so we have to be careful with the kind of art direction that we give. But I think there's a bit of an uplifting aspect to it, and kind of demystifying meditation through animation and through bright colors and nice looking fonts and things like that.
Yeah, so everything's really intentional, right? But it's a very interesting point that you bring up in terms of being careful not to sway too far in the other direction, because this comes up a lot when I'm talking. Yeah, it's. I think with HeadSpace, it's interesting because it meets people where they're at. They're solving real problems in the world we're living in today. But kind of the philosophies that are behind the actual process of meditation, compassion, for example, is something that comes up a lot, and it's interesting how you guys are able to kind of maintain those core philosophies, but still being able to deliver it in more of a modern way, in more of a way where more people can resonate with, because not everybody's looking for a spiritual enlightenment or this deep experience that may be a part of it as you get further into your meditation practice. But this is kind of HeadSpace has become this really a great starting point for that process. So it's just interesting how you mentioned how intentional the colors are, for example, the fonts, and just the overall experience.
Right. Yeah, and I think overall what we're trying to do is get people to reach this aha moment where they realize that they are able to live life a bit more mindfully, and that they are able to deal with the difficult topics of life, with some techniques like, for example, notation, just being able to acknowledge a thought or acknowledge a feeling and kind of let it float away. Mm-hmm. And I think really arming people with those skills early on in life, I think we make a deep connection with them. For me, honestly, it like just learning how to meditate and learning how to live life a bit more mindfully, and definitely it's always practice. I'm nowhere near perfect, and I don't think anybody is. I still go through weeks at a time where I can feel things building up, and I can sense that I haven't meditated in a couple weeks, and maybe I should get back on track. But it's always practice, and it does feel a bit like your secret weapon a little. Absolutely. It's like your little secret weapon to get through life a little easier.
Yeah. So what are those challenging experiences? Like, meditation is it's something that we can use as a tool to actually not only survive, but actually optimize the way we live. But that starting point is for many people getting into it might just be getting through some of these difficult situations. So what are some of those difficult situations that it's a little bit different for everyone, but what are those common things that people are being challenged with out there in the world today?
I think there's a few of them. And this is just kind of a gut feeling based on some of the information we see on our side and the kind of the way that we design our sessions. Anxiety is a huge one. I mean, it's absolutely massive. That's something that many people deal with very quietly. The next, I think, would be stress, just general, like, family stress, workplace stress. Those are really big. And then another one would be just sleep, just having issues falling asleep. Maybe your mind is racing once you're in bed, and you're just looking to get to sleep a little more quickly, or to find a way to deal with the thoughts that are racing through, so that you can get a good night's sleep. I think those three are probably the top kind of items people are dealing with. Now, I mean, we do have an expanding kind of content library. We've got some more difficult subjects. For example, things that will help you deal with the death of a loved one. Things that will make you be able to cope with the fear of flying. There's a fear of flying session that we've got that I used the other day, actually, while I was getting ready to board a plane. And, for me, it was actually the first time I used it. I thought, oh man, this is cool. I can really see how this stuff can fit into like every aspect of my life, not just those obvious ones.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Those are some of the surprising things that start happening in meditation. It will lower your stress and anxiety, those things that you were kind of looking for, but then all these other things will start happening that you didn't expect. And this is why I was really fascinated by the article you wrote, which we'll get into in just a second. But just talking about those difficult, because just anxiety in itself can be a very challenging thing to deal with, and which is why I've learned how important it is to develop your own kind of practice, because that's something that you're going to need to become, more of a self-reliant person. But being able to share these experiences and know that you're not alone as well is just a very important aspect of this process and community. So when you guys are having these conversations in terms of like product development in HeadSpace, how are you guys addressing that human connection? How is that kind of built into the product or experience?
You're going to ask all the tough questions, are you? No, that's great. This idea of community is something that we've been asking ourselves for a while now. I think we've taken some good first steps. We actually have a Facebook group called Everybody HeadSpace.
Cool.
And if you just look it up on Facebook, we've got a few thousand people on there, and there's hundreds joining every day. And it's just a place for, really for people to, from all corners of the world to kind of connect and share some experiences or ask questions. And, we have some of our team there actually answering and sharing stuff as well. And we've also been doing these weekly Facebook Live sessions, because as a team, we meditate at 10 a.m. and 3 p.m. every day. And then, once a week, we'll do the 10 a.m. session on Facebook Live, and we're actually seeing some good heat there. People are tuning in and meditating at home, and I think that kind of helps address that group meditation or like community feeling a little bit. But if I'm being totally honest, when we're talking about where that lives in the HeadSpace app, that's still something that we're figuring out.
Yeah.
I don't think it's something we've quite cracked yet, but it's definitely on our radar, and it is something that we're looking at every day.
That's interesting. Yeah, I noticed those. I always get the notifications for the live meditations on Twitter, and I thought that was just super fascinating, just to using that technology, because I think that's the evolution of where technology has come. At first, we were all excited with all these new toys and all these new things, and now it's becoming how can we use it to optimize our relationships and our human connection, and being creative with how technology plays a role as like a
totally.
Gateway drug to human interaction. So that's why I wanted to ask the question. I knew that's a tough question, because there's a lot of opportunity for creativity. It's a hard one to figure out, but it's very fascinating.
Totally. And I think like that is one of the pieces that actually attracted me to working in this kind of product design role, was the idea of humanizing technology. And I think, as time goes on, we'll only further deepen our relationship with the machines. Boy, that sounds so Terminator like.
Yeah.
But I think that's kind of inevitable, and the more fluid we can make our relationship with technology, I think just generally the better it will be for us as people, as a society.
Yeah, that's a good point, and it's something that I think I'm excited because I think it's going to happen naturally. There's so many conversations about artificial intelligence and humans becoming obsolete and taking over many of the things that we would do. But I think what's going to happen inevitably is what's going to kind of pop out on the other side of that is the realization of how important human connection actually is. So we might have more. I'm not sure how that's going to come to fruition, but it's going to become more obvious how. We're still human beings. So as long as we're on the earth, that connection is always going to be necessary for us.
Absolutely. Yeah. There will always be the kind of the yearning for a human touch. It's not, it's the reason why people meet up in cafes every day and have coffee with strangers. And, people go out to restaurants to chat with and eat with friends. Those are not things that we have to do. They're things that we like to do.
That's a good point. Yeah. And those apps that really, any way that you can optimize basic human nature to connect, for example, those are always things that are going to stick around for a while. And there's something to HeadSpace that kind of has that. And it's very interesting because we're dealing with a topic that it's a very human topic, right?
Totally.
So what has it been like working with other people in a team and getting into kind of the design process and developing ideas and brainstorming, and what has it been like?
Yeah, I mean, the team we have here, the design team specifically, we're about 10 people. Those are product designers, design researchers who are a bit more in the user experience realm. We've got some people who are a little stronger in illustration, some people a little stronger in interaction design. So it's a really well-balanced team. And I have to say, in my career, although it hasn't been that long, I've never, ever seen a team like this one. It's an absolute treat to work with these people every day. They're inspiring, talented, driven. And I think the most important piece is that as a team, we've got some really great transparency and open communication. So it never, I haven't gotten to that point where it feels like somebody on my team doesn't have my back. And I think that's absolutely crucial to creativity and to idea generation. Just, knowing that one, your bad ideas are not being judged, or that, somebody's not going to swoop in and try to show you up on something or whatever. I think just like that total open communication and sharing of ideas, I think that's how you can really make the best products, make the best design. Also just that, I think a judgment-free zone makes for elevated creativity.
Is that a challenging thing to accomplish?
I think in the world of design, yeah. I think when you really analyze what a design team looks like, I think there's often some people on the teams that, and naturally, I think it's okay. They have, they've got other aspirations, other goals beyond building the product that you're working on. And I think the quicker you can kind of squash that, the better. And then we can really get focused on building the product and making the best thing that we can for our users. And I think everything else kind of falls into place after that. I mean, one of these kind of sayings that I always repeat to myself is, just chase the dream and chase the dream, not the career aspirations and not the money, and everything else follows. As long as your intentions are pure and you're truly, honestly chasing this dream of creating the best product that adds value to your users. Like, it's just a domino effect. Everything just comes soon after.
Yeah. And when everybody's kind of is coming in with the same intentions and focused towards the same goal, that's when the magic starts to happen, right?
Totally. And I think one little piece I wanted to mention too is, although we have some meditation sessions throughout the day at the office, when we have larger group meetings or brainstorms, we'll do a quick little 3-minute kind of group session. And that really, really helps to squash ego a little bit. Because I think, no matter how enlightened or zen you are, your ego still creeps in. I think that's okay. I think that's a natural thing for people to go through, and I think we all do. But definitely, having a little group meditation session really kind of gets rid of that.
Very good point. Yeah. The ego, that's something that comes up a lot, and that's something that it's an ongoing challenge every day. So, which is meditation in itself. It's an everyday discipline. It's not a solution. It's a relationship that needs to be built in order for us to experience those benefits. And being able to transcend the ego from time to time is a pretty interesting experience when you're only concerned. You're only concerned with creativity and the curiosity. But just briefly, what is the design process? Kind of, what does that look like? So
I think the typical design process usually starts with some kind of brainstorm or ideation session around a problem or an issue you're trying to solve. So if you're trying to deal with, sharing or community or something, you might just ask some really big, broad questions and then brainstorm around that, either on your own or with a group of people. And usually that leads to some whiteboarding or jotting some quick ideas down, some thumbnail sketches. And then after that, you would vet kind of what those stronger concepts are and see if you want to flush those out. And that gives you an opportunity to kind of run them past some people, gut check them with other people on the team, maybe some managers, maybe some engineers, just to see, like, out of all of these options, which one is the most feasible technically or from a resourcing standpoint. And one, first and foremost, what do you think will have the better opportunity for success for what we're trying to solve? And then further kind of refining that and applying color, type, layout, all of these things that designers are typically expected to do, to kind of add that layer of finesse on top of it. But first, like, before you add the visual touches, you want to consider kind of the interactions and how you navigate from screen to screen and how that fits into the whole experience. And I think that applies anywhere from not just the world of interface design, but also in the world of branding. When you're designing, if you're designing a brand or a marketing materials, you'd want to also consider, like, how that all fits in with the bigger picture.
Yeah. And it's amazing how much design and style is very important. Like how it feels on the screen and the colors, so it's
totally,
it's all very important. And that's kind of the, it's been cool to see the different layouts and just how the apps are starting to look today. They're starting to look, there's more texture involved. There's more feel. It's very cool.
I think so. And then beyond that, once you've put something out into the world, if you have the ability to test it and to compare it to maybe earlier versions of the work, or just to see how people are reacting, maybe by doing a little bit of user interviewing or testing, then that can really help guide your future decisions that you make.
Yeah. So
I think it's not just the creative part; it's also analyzing and determining, what was a good decision and how you might approach it in the future again.
Yeah, and keeping in mind that this is what you're actually building is actually for other people on the other end of this. And
absolutely.
It's in terms of testing, is it hard not to get too emotionally invested in kind of your initial ideas?
Yeah, some people would actually recommend that you don't test your own work and that you have someone else on the team test the work for you. then they'll be a little bit less biased toward the feedback they're receiving. But something that we'll always do when we're doing user testing is remind the person we're getting to review this that we'll tell them we're not the designers, and that you can kind of be as harsh as you want with us because you're not personally offending us. So I think that's another little piece of squashing the ego there.
Yeah, that's very fascinating.
It takes time to be able to just be objective.
Yeah, do it for the greater cause. It's not always not always the easiest thing to do. So yeah, so I want to link. I'm gonna definitely link up that article so our listeners can check that out and read it. It's the mindful design process, which is this is one of my favorite articles about mindfulness. To be honest, I really love just such a amazing example of mindfulness as a toolbox and as a modern application. So what was the inspiration here? Obviously this isn't something that you just came up with. This is based on some real experiences that you've had. So where did this article come from?
Yeah, to be honest, it almost started off as a bit of a joke. I thought this would be an interesting idea to tie in some of the like techniques that you learn in meditation and mindfulness to the design process. And the more I started jotting some ideas down, the more I saw that this could actually be something, and that there were some real life applications and similarities just in the design process and mindfulness. And I think honestly, it's kind of a classic start to finish design process with just a little kind of bits of mindfulness throughout. Mm-hmm. And one of the biggest ones for me was just this idea of planning properly before you begin. And I think a lot of younger designers don't actually take the time to set up their station and to really think about what it is they're trying to achieve, and they just kind of jump straight into software.
Yeah. And
I think that can work sometimes, but for me, I haven't been super successful with that. So I've always appreciated, taking the time to really ease into the work. And another aspect too is just like idea generation and not getting stuck to your ideas, and kind of applying like noting techniques to that. So let's say you're whiteboarding something or sketching something out, and you see that this could work, this could not work. Just being really willing to let that one go, and knowing that as long as you've jotted it down, if it's strong, it'll come back. Mm-hmm. And just using that as a tool to get through kind of iteration. And then another big piece, I think, is this idea of like not multitasking. I think especially today, we're often, we've got Twitter open on one browser tab, and we've got a podcast playing, and we're designing, on our big screen, and maybe someone's like having a conversation with you on the side as well. And we're doing 100 things at once, and just like really trimming that down, and only having kind of the apps open that you really need to get your job done, at least to begin with, to get through those initial stages of the creative process, I think can be really, really helpful at just getting you started and making sure that you're taking the right step to really solving something. Wow.
Yeah, that's super. Yeah, because like that's why I love it, because it's like you said, it might have started out as a joke, but as you explore, it's such a perfect example of how mindfulness can be useful, because the design process it touches on so many things in our psychology, like having to overcome the ego. And it could be such a wild process, because it's not point A to point B. It's a squiggle line, and it's kind of all over the place, right? And totally, like having to turn back around and look at your original ideas. And that's kind of that's what struck me when I was reading the article, is like, this is why people try to go through things so fast and just kind of get it over with, but they miss all of the good stuff in between. And I like how you say kind of just pay attention to how you're preparing and being, since it is such a wild up and down process, being aware and mindful of where you're at within that process, so you can be aware of the opportunities and kind of navigate through that.
I think just things move so fast in general in life, and you can quickly go through a week of work and then look back and think, I don't even remember what I got done, or like I went through my tasks so quickly that none of it felt very good. So just really remembering like what got you into the world of design. I think that's been really helpful for me. Especially, being out here in California and working on apps, when I was a kid, I still remember the moment I got my first iPhone, and I try to really focus on that sometimes and think about how, it felt like this magic little box that had apps on it. And to think that today I'm sitting here and I'm designing one of the apps that people use every day on that, that magic little device. I think just approaching it with like a bit more of a beginner's mind sometimes, kind of remembering what got you into this industry and what got you excited in the early days, when you were a student of design, and decided it would be a great idea to spend a bunch of money on tuition to learn the basics of design. Like, why did you do that? And what got you excited about it at the time? And are you still excited about that today? And I think, for me, the answer is yeah, definitely. Just having that moment where I was able to launch my first website, or the moment where I realized I understood, how to lay out typography properly. Those are all things that you can really take for granted, like 10 years down the line, as just like skills that you're expected to know how to do. But those weren't always there, and just being aware of that and identifying that, maybe before you jump into a big stressful project with a tight deadline, just like remembering why you're doing this, who you're doing this for, and really just helping you stay excited about it.
Oh, that's amazing.
I think even the most boring tasks can be pretty exciting. Everything's got a little nugget of learning that you can take away from it.
And sometimes just remembering what keeps you excited and asking those important questions. Those are questions that don't come up that often when we're embarking on something different and new. It's, So thanks a lot for sharing that with us. It's been a lot of fun talking to you and kind of picking your brain here, because I've really been looking forward to this.
Cool. Yeah, absolutely. Thanks so much for having me.
Excellent. So I wish you all the best, and moving forward in this wild design experience. And I hope you guys are always coming up with some new and exciting ideas for us.
We'll do our best.
Yeah, that's right. Actually, well, I did want to take the opportunity while I have you on here to ask you, what are you guys working on now?
So there's a few things that are top secret. So let me think about what I can share with you today. Yeah. Well, we recently just launched the new version of the app. So that's been a long time in the making. We're extremely proud of it. And now we're just looking at, at just some things in the peripheral vision of the app, and seeing what are some unique partnerships that we can use to just offer more to our users. And I'm not sure if you're aware, but we've actually got the app in some airlines. So we're actually we're on Air Canada on the back of the seat screen, and we're on a handful of others. And that's an experience that we're working on a little bit more these days, and really making sure that we're offering the best value for people who are on flights and who are looking to get a little dose of mindfulness, or maybe it's their first time discovering HeadSpace or discovering meditation, and really designing the best experience around that. So that's the airline stuff's got me really excited lately, because again, as a kid, I could have never imagined designing an app that would live on a plane.
Wow.
I think
That's crazy.
flying is, every time I jump on a plane, I can't complain. I see people complaining about the wait times and the delays and all that stuff. And I just think, this is a modern miracle. I still can't believe that I got from point A to point B in such short time. And, just to be able to design an app that lives on a plane, I think it feels like magic to me.
Mm-hmm. It is, man. Good work. It's really, it's really interesting just to see the inspiration and the curiosity that's driven your path and kind of what you're working on today. It's just fantastic. So thanks a lot for, once again, I appreciate your time today, and thanks for coming on and getting into these different topics. And it's been a very fascinating podcast. I really enjoyed it.
Cool. Yeah, no problem. Thanks so much.
Awesome.
And if you get a chance, you can check out some of the stuff the HeadSpace team is working on at headspace.design.
Headspace.design. Yeah, that's where I actually found the article. That's where it was published, right?
Yep, exactly.
Okay, cool. We will be sure to link that up in the post as well. And you can follow Frank on Twitter at Frank Chartrand to see what he's up to. He's always posting some interesting stuff, so keep in touch with Frank. We will link up Frank's Twitter handle in the post. And for all of the latest episodes, you can follow Mind Body Vortex on Facebook and Instagram at Mind Body Vortex. So you can also find our podcast on SoundCloud, YouTube, and iTunes. And if you enjoyed this episode, please leave a review on iTunes or Facebook. Really appreciate the feedback. Always looking for fun and fascinating ways to explore these topics with you. So I look forward to sharing our next conversation with you. Take care. Stay curious.